to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please return to the show.
Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Hi, welcome to New York Parrot's Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today, we have Dionne D. Hunter. She's originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but is also called Ohio and North Carolina home. After the sudden death of her mother, Miss Hunter was raised by her widowed father, who strove to raise her to be self-reliant and proud of her African-American heritage. He also encouraged her to read, and read she did, everything including poetry, sci-fi, horror, and romance. She fell in love with the art of storytelling and would spend hours weaving adventurous tales to entertain her siblings. As a United States Navy veteran, mother of two, and grandmother of four, Miss Hunter has gravitated to spoken word as an expression of her emotions and ideals. Her work has been included in anthologies published by Writing Nights, The Poet's Haven, and Crisis Chronicles Press. She has been featured in a web series, Equity in Art, Cleveland Poet Speaks to Social Injustice, as well as being featured during a television segment called How Art Speaks in Unsettling Times, Carolina Impact PBS, Charlotte, WTVI. In addition, her spoken word videos have been selected to be screened during the 9th International Video Poetry Festival in Athens, Greece, and the 2021 Raleigh Films and Arts Festival in North Carolina. Most recently, she has authored a book titled I Am a Homie Warrior. It follows the gripping journey of a young girl coming of age prior to the colonialization of Africa, and is written as a short story using poetry as an aid to enhancing the reader's journey. Thank you for joining us today, Dionne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How about you?
Doing wonderful. I'm glad to be speaking with you, and it sounds like you have a really interesting journey that you've been through, and you've survived, and keep publishing and writing poetry, and just keep doing that. So, how did your writing journey begin, and what were some of your earliest poetry about?
Well, I actually started writing poetry when I was about 10 years old. And it started out as greeting cards. I would write little greeting cards and go knock door to door and try to get special, if it was someone's birthday or an anniversary or just an I love you, and I would write the poems out for them and then draw artistically on the card, and then I would sell it to them. And that was my first step into the poetry scene and entrepreneur.
Also, I was going to say that's entrepreneurial activity there too. That's really wonderful that as a young girl, selling birthday cards that you created yourself. It's really nice to be rewarded for what you do, and especially in money when you're in need of money.
Exactly. And my dad was a single father. My mom passed away when I was 7. So, he worked nights. I was the oldest of 3 kids. And, we had to do something to entertain ourselves. And reading was what I did to entertain myself, and writing and drawing. along with that. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So do you still do short stories, and what are some of your favorite subjects on to write or to discuss and narrative?
Well, you know, my I actually delve now more into spoken word, and to
Okay.
me, spoken word is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And my subjects range from uh, sensual, you know, love to motivation to loss, heartbreak, growing old, being young, and everything in between. I
Mm-hmm.
think of myself as a every man's poet because I speak on subjects that everyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, but I've done spoken word that speaks on social justice, you know, things that are going on in today's society,
Mm-hmm.
and even things that happened in the past, you know, with my own family.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to, as you say in your bio, to express your ideals and emotions. Did your service?
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
I try to do it in a way that doesn't inflame. You know, I try to get a point across, my point across. But if you're arguing with someone, then no one's listening. You
Yeah.
know, so I try to frame my poetry in a way where someone who doesn't agree with me will actually listen and learn something.
Hmm. Did your service in the Navy teach you anything that you could relate into your writing? And I'm curious, why did you choose to join the Navy? Was that a, did you have some sort of focus you were, or there was a kind of an act of economic desperation? Maybe some people join because they're just can't find a job, or it's an
Well,
interesting story.
yeah, I had a lot of military folks in my household. My dad was in the Navy, uncle
Mm-hmm.
was in the Navy. You know, my dad was in the Vietnam War. My uncle was a chief in the Navy. So there was some background there, but you know, as a rebellious teenager, I left home and didn't have had one plan and it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to work out. And then you have to eat. And so my dad suggested that I enter the service. And so I signed up, and the rest is history. And I did, you know, the service, um, being the oldest, I've always been, I think, pretty independent. But
Mm-hmm.
going off into the service, it helped me solidify that independent spirit.
Okay.
Um, you know, because you're always meeting new people, you're in new places. You have to be able to make friends with, uh, you know, people of many different backgrounds. So I bring all of that into my writing.
That's interesting. So you feel that being in the Navy, I mean, you're traveling a lot around, and you're kind of like from one, as you said, from one place to another. So you have to sort of adapt, an open attitude to kind of, learn about people and who you're meeting. We've had interesting conversations with other writers who've traveled quite a bit. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things they mention is that it's very independent, and it's something that you kind of you get in a position where you're away from home, and you're not so dependent on the familiar, and so you come out and you're like, you have to sort of learn more, and you have to be open to what's going on around you, and so you get a kind of independent spirit, and it's interesting.
And that's something that I've always been proud of, is that I have, um, you know, throughout a majority of my life, I've been able to, although in one of my poems it says, as although it was never easy, I did make it through, and it
Mm-hmm.
was most times based off of, you know, just my hard work and, you know, independent spirit. Although, you know, God will put you in your place
Mm-hmm.
and uh, let you know that it's not all just you.
Right.
is, people around
Mhm.
you that help you, and along with just the universe in general. Hmm.
Absolutely. So, there's always that tension between independence and dependence, or
Right.
maybe not dependence so much as interactions and getting help when you need it.
Well, you have to be able to accept help.
Hmm.
So sometimes you can be so independent that it's hard to accept help. And I can be guilty of that. So
Hmm.
it's hard to ask for something, ask for that
Yeah.
help and when you need it, because you're so used to being on your own. And that's something that I've been working on, over the years. So
Hmm.
hopefully I'm a little bit, hopefully I don't need help that often, but when I do, I have to humble myself enough to ask.
Right. And that's a good way of putting in humbling yourself. And I think that's the lesson of humanity, is learning to sort of adapt to a consciousness that you're not alone in the world, and it teaches you also to be conscious of other people and their needs, not just your own, I think.
Yes, yes. I've volunteered throughout my life in different aspects. I've been a big sister, worked in homeless shelters, or donated, or did different things. So, and that helps you with a sense of purpose in life. Um, you know, that it isn't all about you, or
Mhm.
in my case, me.
Right.
Um, so, all those things kind of intertwine together to make life worth living. You have to be able to strive and make it on your own, but you also need that community around you to help you, and you need to be able to help your community.
Absolutely. So,
Yes.
and going back to your PBS special and sort of the theme that we're talking now,
Mhm.
what role do you think the artist plays in a troubled society?
I think it holds a mirror up to society,
Hmm.
um, and shows you the state of society. Just as in now with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movements
Hmm.
that have been going on, that's um, uh, relived within art, whether it's spoken word, poetry, song, um, those feelings, the angst of the population comes out in the artist's words.
Hmm.
And, just as I spoke on earlier, um, you know, people are more prone to listen to artists as opposed to, some that someone may not agree with you. They see you marching down the street, which I think marching and rallying is great. I'm just saying that if someone sees that, their mind automatically shuts down.
Hmm.
Where if they hear you, speaking on something beautifully, they might get caught off guard and actually, oh, wait a minute, did I catch a piece of something there? And it sticks with them. Maybe later on during the night, it runs through their head.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think that's true, and I definitely think the mirror is the metaphor you use there is definitely something that artists do as we reflect back what's kind of being pushed on us, and also we reflect our own natures into the world, and sort of I think an artist generally has a nobility of soul.
Hmm.
There's something within them that they recognize that, and it's in everybody. It's just that artists, I think, are come in touch with it. There's this childlike soul that loves to create and make beautiful things out of, all the, disasters and the conflicts in the world. And also at the same time, be able to show people, just where things are wrong
Hmm. Hmm. Or where things are right.
and where things are right as well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of be a moral conscience to the environment we're in, and at the same time creating something beautiful and interesting and unique that people can, as you said, can relate to and hear, and they think, "Wow, that's really nice." But when they see angry people marching and picketing, and they don't really relate to that as strongly. I think a lot of people that are not as in tune with a lot of the activists and the causes they represent.
Right. Yes, I can agree with that. You know, me personally, I try to always listen to both sides because you can't debate with someone if you don't know where they're coming from. So I try to
Absolutely.
keep an open mind
Mhm.
myself. But everyone is not like that. They're polarized on one side or the other and don't know the issues, that either of the other people are speaking on or concerned about. So
Mhm.
I try to keep a wide palette of information available to me.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, how do you think a commitment to social justice issues helps you discover new truths about life?
Wow. You know, many of my poems and my spoken word pieces have a historical base.
Mhm.
Um, so let's say like I have one piece that's called Onward, and it speaks on the Freedman's Bank.
Mhm.
So it's it's speaking on how African Americans have been mistreated, um, but it's also telling a story that explains how. So
Mhm.
sometimes when we say we've been done wrong, other
Mhm.
people say how, when, where, even
Mhm.
though those things should be pretty obvious. But
Right.
I specifically talk about a time where there was money put into a bank by people who used to be, slaves, by soldiers of color, and how that money was just ran through by, folks who were supposed to be taking care of it.
Mhm.
And those folks never got any of that money back. And that's called loss of generational wealth,
Right.
So if you can imagine, I was able to put that into a poem
Hmm.
and, or a spoken word piece. And that's
Interesting.
called Onward. So I think that a person can use poetry or song to teach, um, and again, catch people off guard. Well, wow, that's something that I really didn't know, and it was entertaining at the same time.
Mhm.
So it,
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to be about. All my poetry is definitely not um, social justice. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But um, a key part of me is an important part of my heart is making sure that um, history is not erased. You
Right.
know, they can tell us that we can't teach it, but just because you don't teach it in the schools doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Right.
So,
There's definitely an attempt right now all across the board to sort of whitewash things, and it's been going on for a long time. I think it's getting a little bit better. They're easing up a little bit, but still, the more you kick back, the more they kick back. It's really, we can't take an honest look at all the good and the bad of this country.
exactly.
It's not like we're trying to tell people this is just a horrible country and we should just, you know,
No.
just totally redo it or something. That's not what people want to hear anyway, and it's not very
No.
effective. Just
No.
take an honest look at some of the misdeeds and the conflicts that have been going on
It's
and
like
has continued. Hmm?
right. With any family, you have
Right,
problems and issues,
right,
and you can't just forget about. You don't forget. A child doesn't forget what
right.
happened to them as they grew up. It has an effect on them
Hmm.
as they grow and mature,
Hmm.
and that's the same thing. Uh, I'm proud to be an American.
Right.
But things that have happened in the past do have an effect on me and do have an effect on my family
Hmm.
and the population of all colors in general, good and bad.
Injustice in general, it affects not just the perpetrators and the people that it's done to, it affects the people that are doing it. It
Exactly.
dehumanizes all people. in the process. And it's definitely not, you look at the history of the deprivation of wealth and everything that's happened. And it's something that I would find a hard time putting that in a poem myself. I really commend you on that, being able to put in this so much, of this conflict and injustice and these issues that, that people wrestle with, and how you can put that into something really beautiful and make it a story that people can relate to. So have people come to you and said, that was really fascinating, or wanted to learn more, or anything? You had any interesting comments about your work when you do that, when you write social justice, or anything, just anything interesting that people have said relating to your work?
Oh, most definitely. One moment that sticks out in my mind was once at the Hessler Fair in Ohio. Hessler Street Fair in Ohio, I read a piece called Humanity, and it speaks on the Middle Passage, the journey of the middle through the Middle Passage. And once I was done, this young African American girl came up to me. She couldn't have been any more than, maybe 11 or 12, and she just said, that it was beautiful and touching. And coming from a child so young, it was almost unbelievable, that she even understood the significance of what I was saying, and or even got the point of the piece. But for her to look up to stop me and say that, really let me know that I was on the right track as far as doing historical poetry. There's been so many other times, let's just say when I've done my more romantic poetry, there's been times where people have, couples have stopped me and said, you know what, we were fighting before we got here, but you really, changed our attitudes, and we're going to go home and have some fun. And, so, yeah.
Even a marriage may be there.
Right. Say something. Yeah. So, I've gotten it from all aspects. And when I write, I don't write to get praise. I write to get out what's inside of me at the time. But you have to know that it is an indescribable feeling for someone to come up to you and to acknowledge your hard work, and to state that what you spent a lot of time and effort doing really touched their heart. So yes, and that's happened. So, yeah,
that's wonderful. It's good to get comments back that are positive and uplifting, and you feel that you're being recognized in a sense that people really understand what you're saying. I mean, it's really hard sometimes to find people that are willing to even listen. So, when you talk about it or talk about things in your life or whatever of interest that you have, sometimes it's hard to find good listeners, and it's good that, people react positively to the work. So we're going to take a brief break, and then we'll be back with some of your poetry. This is Parrot Literary Corner.
The huntress pulled me closer, hugging me tightly. She looked down at me with dark, piercing eyes and said, "None of this is your fault. Today you were only a child and you did what you were able to do. Survive."
watching. The Musing.
The huntress pulled me closer, hugging me tightly. She looked down at me with dark, piercing eyes and said, "None of this is your fault. Today you were only a child and you did what you were able to do. Survive."
And we're back with the Parrot Literary Corner. We have Dionne Hunter with us today, and I hope you enjoyed that trailer for her book, I'm a Dahomey Hunter. So tell us a little bit about some of your work. You can read a couple of poems if you would like.
Yes, okay. Well, I think I will read, I wanted to read a piece called I'm at That Age.
Okay.
Because my birthday...
I look forward to it.
Okay. My birthday is coming up on October 9th, and I'm definitely at that age. I'm at that age where I appreciate every sunrise, sunset, and all the hours in between. The age that causes me to notice the rhythmic timing of each breath. Each one serving as a reminder to thank God for allowing me to see another day. I'm at that age where things start to stiffen up, and maybe I don't move as fluently as I did at 22. But I'm also at that age where I realize so many didn't even get to see today. So I pray on bent and aching knee, thank you, God, for blessing me. I'm at that age where I see my kids making some of the same mistakes that I did. And I have to remind myself that although never easy, I made it through, and so will they. I'm at that age where I understand that money will never buy true happiness. But I'm also at that age where I understand that it definitely does help to have a bit. I'm at that age where six-pack abs still attract. But I'm also at that age where the actions of a true gentleman will stop me in my tracks. I'm at that age where I know what it means to be a woman and how to treat my man, beginning with listening to him while he explains what he needs from me. Because although there are many similarities, all men are not the same. I'm at that age where I know good things don't come to those who wait. They go to those who plan, work, educate, sacrifice, and repeat rigorously over and over and over again. I'm at that age where I appreciate spending time with my entire family, whether we're on good terms or not. Because I'm also at that age where I'm losing so many people that I care about. I'm at that age where I'm bearing down on that age where more chapters of my life will be in past instead of future tense. But I'm also at that age where I refuse to give up. I continue to strive, to climb, to improve, to share and create, bearing my soul to the universe. My God, the ancestors, and myself becoming the best version of me possible because I'm at that age. Thank you.
Wow, that's a very emotive reading. I enjoyed hearing that, and it was I like the fact that there's sort of like a middle ground that you're reaching in the poem where you're letting go of some of the old behaviors and patterns of the past and welcoming the newer, more wise patterns of the future. And that's a really, really nice poem. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
If you have another one you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I was trying to decide between, since you said you were wondering how I could relate some facts into a poem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna go with I Can't Breathe. And then if we
Okay.
have enough time, one more.
Okay.
Okay. I can't breathe. Three seemingly simple words are changing the course of history and driving protesters into the streets. I can't breathe. I can't breathe has been the final cry of too many of my brothers and sisters. And I can't breathe because their lack of oxygen is either caused by the boot on their neck or the stranglehold society has on the truth surrounding all of the positive impacts African Americans have had on all aspects of American history. I can't breathe because popular culture has been lulled into believing that there should be no ill effects from the scars left behind by 400 years of slavery, or by receiving land only to have it stolen and pilfered back in the name of a robbery known as sharecropping, or by the fraud and theft surrounding the Freedman's Bank, or by living with the results of the Black Code, Jim Crow, redlining, or even terrorism or murder. I can't breathe because I take the time to remember and mourn the innocent lives lost during the race massacres of New Orleans, Camilla, Colfax, and Cincinnati, just to name a few. And I can't breathe because even after enduring all those atrocities, Blacks have made astonishing bounds that are relegated to the halls of the obscure, while textbooks feign false adoration for 3 or 4 of our kinfolk. I can't breathe because all people need to know the positive influence their forefathers had on civilization. Why do you believe that we are any different? Where are our statues? Where are our monuments? I can't breathe because while you proudly fly the Confederate flag, ranting that your history and heritage are so important, you shout that Blacks should just forget theirs and move on. How can these two mentalities exist on the same timeline, let alone in the same consciousness? I can't breathe because even slave owners received reparations for the loss of their human property, and their heirs still reap the benefits of their ancestors' crimes against humanity. Yet the men and women whose open wounds bled as they helped to build this more perfect union received no payments for services rendered. And the only inheritance set aside for their descendants is your intolerance and condemnation. I can't breathe because it's so hard for some to understand that separate but equal only ended 66 years ago. And in truth, separate was never equal. Unjust laws meant to shackle Black families into generational deprivation ensured that fact. And I can't breathe because systemic racism is being compared to the behavior of a small criminal minority in the effort to water down the bloodstains left behind by both, even though each has a direct correlation to the other. And I can't breathe because when you attempt to steal the pride and history of an entire population, unwanted repercussions will be had by all. But raise up a community, teaching them of their accomplishments, and like a garden that has been properly fertilized, a great harvest shall be laid at our country's feet, instead of finding a barren wasteland where no one, not even you, can breathe. Thank you.
Wow. There's a lot there that's being mentioned, and you have all the history and the The moral foundation of the poem is apparent. Obviously, we know exactly what you're referring to and what you're saying and conveying, and you put it in a contemporary context of what's going on today. It's a lovely poem and a very powerful reading of it in the process there. So I really felt every word. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it kind of speaks on what we were talking about earlier about how effects on a group can affect the whole. And that was the point that I was trying to get across in the poem. There are effects for actions. So,
right. Everything has a consequence, right? So you had one more you wanted to read?
Yeah. I wanted to speak actually about the story that I wrote too. So should I actually could read a piece out of that.
Okay.
Like okay.
Sure. You do that.
Okay. So my book is called I Am a Dahomey Warrior.
Okay.
And it is, as you said, it talks about the coming of age of a young girl growing up in what is now Benin, but back then it was Dahomey. And her trials and tribulations and how she ultimately becomes a warrior as part of this all-female warrior clan. So now this piece that I'm going to read from, now this is actually a story written with just the aid of poetry. It's not a poem per se. But I do want to alert anyone that, this is during a time where people, had to hunt for food. And, this piece that I'm speaking on kind of goes towards that. So if you have an issue with anything in regards to that, then this might not be the piece that you want to listen to.
Okay.
To be fair. Concealed by vegetation, spears in hand, a configuration of female huntresses lay in wait, listening actively, noticing the forest alive with all its brilliancy. Water ebbing through a neighboring stream, while insects traveled flower to flower, pollinating only the most colorful of the bounty. For a moment, the commander was taken back to more innocent times. She reminisced of times in her youth when she set quiet scenes such as these to canvas. Shrubbery breaking under heavy weight snapped her back to present day. The prey ambled along the riverbank, bulls leading, calves following behind. A change in strategy was needed. The warriors shifted their attack to the rear. Elephants pivoted to meet the threat. Ghastly trumpeting erupted. Spears infiltrated. Ivory impaled. Two fearless foes converged. Elephants concerned only with protecting their young, and the huntresses thinking only of the mothers, relying on them to feed theirs. Then, terrible screams. The commander watched in horror as 3 of her sister warriors were gorged and trampled. Unimaginable horrors. But the commander had no choice but to continue while showing no fear. Even though her tears flowed uncontrollably, she called out orders, pushing onward. Finally, the huntresses separated a calf from the herd. Triumph. The commander wiped blood, sweat, and entrails from her brow. Looking left to right, she nodded approval towards her surviving regiment, and they began the long trek home, the weight of calf carcass and their fallen soldiers on their backs. As the regiment approached, they heard chants carried over the wind. We will never forget our sisters. We will never forget the cost you bear. We will never forget our sisters. We will never forget the cost you bear.
Well, thank you so much. That's wonderful. It's very descriptive. We're going to play the trailer one more time and let people take a look and get a taste of it. And so here it comes.
The huntress pulled me closer, hugging me tightly. She looked down at me with dark, piercing eyes and said, "None of this is your fault. Today you were only a child and you did what you were able to do. Survive."
Wow, that's a beautiful trailer, excellently done. So what are your final messages to our viewers before we close the interview?
Well, I would ask that each one of your viewers take a moment, pull out a pen and piece of paper, and put some of their feelings down on paper. Even if you never plan on sharing it, express yourself. Um, you know, let it out. If you make a journal, a short poem, a spoken word, whatever it is, you'll be surprised at what you can create.
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, this actual book started out as a poem, one poem, and then two poems and three poems, and I merged them all together and it went into, of course, prose. But you never know what you have inside of you if you give yourself a chance. And, so that's what I think I would leave the viewers on.
So do you have any shout outs you'd like to, family, friends, or supporters you'd like to thank?
Oh, definitely. I would like to thank my son and daughter, Marshall and Leah, for definitely being so supportive of me. I got the idea of writing about this particular time period from a friend of mine named Bryant. My daughter brought home a DNA ancestry kit who alerted us to the fact that we have some Togo, Benin, and Nigerian, or she has somewhere in between me and her father. She brought the Homie Warriors into my preview and asked me to do some research on them, and that's how I came up with this story. It's just so many people I would have to thank, and then you put me on the spot, so I can't think of all their names.
Quite all right. I'm sure everybody that we've missed, it's quite all right.
Definitely. I want to thank Keith Allison. He's helped me with editing the book, also the trailer. He's a godsend and an excellent poet. I would even recommend you having him on your show if you need additional guests.
Sure. Love new referrals.
And so I think that's about it. And also David. I would like to thank David for all of the help that he gives me and support that he gives me as well. So I think that's everybody.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dionne. It's been wonderful and pleasant talking with you, and I hope you continue to write and educate people as you're doing with various issues that are going on in the world. So just keep it up, and wish your book success and your previous work success. This has been Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering. If you'd like to donate to the show, you can do so through PayPal. That is paypal.me/nyparrot. And that we will be abundantly grateful for all donations. And if you want to be a guest on the show or refer somebody, you can get in touch with me, Dustin, at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. I'll be more than happy to address any questions you have and concerning the program, or if you're an artist, a musician, a creative writer of any kind, we'd love to hear from you. We love talking with you guys, and we love interviewing you guys. So without further ado, we have a little surprise for you here at the end of the show. There's this wonderful piece called Onward. So let's hear it.
The year was 1863 and blacks were finally free. Free to live their lives as they pleased, just so long as how they pleased never upset the balance sheet. Free from the chains that bound them to work land that wasn't theirs, yet not free enough to escape laws that hindered their opportunity. Manipulation of the system guaranteed them low pay. Same work, different wage was the theme of the day. Still, every dime not earmarked for survival was stuffed under mattresses, placed into cookie jars, or buried in backyards. There were no other options for the freed. The white majority blocked access to established banking systems. But some of them did see this as a travesty, and with only good intentions approached the black community. The freedman's savings and trust, a bank specifically for the soldier of color along with the newly freed. But the path to hell is paved with the corpses of those who trusted words spewed from the mouths of the well-meaning. Yet even still, with hopes of building a better future for their progeny, blacks deposited their hopes and dreams. Grasping onto faith, they believed, oh how they believed. 70,000 innocent black souls believed, hungry for a safe place to build their family's eternity. They believed. Deposits equaling $57 million in today's economy. They believed. Congress appointed white men as trustees, endowing them with the responsibility to ensure all funds were handled properly. But they betrayed that trust, extending unsecured loans to their own businesses as well as their cohorts. Thus, the freedman's bank and trust was dismantled from within, brick by bloody brick, until there was nothing left to ravage. Then, under the guise of wanting
Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.